And so we come up with this wing. Max, hope you like it. And it's Friday, and he thought, it was okay, it was all right. Saturday morning, he's like, could you shave some bits off that wing? It's like, what? The wing that we already thought was like the lowest downforce wing possible? Yeah. Well, you want me to take some more downforce off it? Yeah. Can you like get a dentist drill out and like shave some bits off, take even more downforce on? Yeah, but Max, it might, muller us in the race because we're going to have these tyres that move around. And so, I'll be all right. I'll fix that. It's fine.
Ted Kravitz. I don't remember the last time I didn't see you wearing, I know, that's a common mistake that everybody makes, wearing a headset and a belt with a load of radio mics and everything else on it, with a microphone in your hand.
I know.
How are you?
Very well, Georgie. How are you?
I'm very well. You had a nice summer. It feels like
whatever it was, that program we used to do back in the day.
I know. It was our Friday afternoon F1 show, wasn't it? Yeah.
I can't remember. I think I always used to sit the other side of you. So my memory,
we were like Ant and Dec.
Yeah. So
and you would chat technical and I would chat everything else.
I know. But fantastic to be back. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, well, it's lovely to have you here. And the reason why I've managed to lure you into the podcast studio,
not television program anymore,
is because you got a book out called F1 Insider.
Yes.
So we are going to leaf through it and we're going to dive into it throughout the course of the next 45 minutes or so. But I want to start with the thing that I start with everybody, the defining moment piece, because it sort of shines a light then on sort of what you've become and who you are as a person and these various things that you pull out of it. So if I was to ask you what's been, as you would see it, your defining moment, what would it be? Is it in here?
It's not in two. No, it's not in there. But there's a sort of clue to it in there. Can I have two? There was one thing that got me in because something that is in there, which is where I started, which was radio.
Yeah.
And then I thought that I was going to carry on, have a perfectly good or bad career in radio. And that I was just going to carry on there. And then there was my passion in life, which was Formula One, which I thought was going to remain my passion in life. So I never thought they were going to mix. So the defining moment in radio was when, in my gap year, I guess, 1992, I was working at CBS News in their London bureau through a contact I had who ran the radio department of the CBS News London bureau. And CBS News, obviously television news, they had a whole floor of this office building near Hyde Park. And there was one tiny room smaller than this, which was the radio department. It was run by a guy called Dan Raviv. And then he left to go back to New York or Washington. And then it was run by a guy called Adam Raphael. And Dan Raviv was great. And he would sit and write his scripts and he could touch type. And why did we not learn?
I know.
Can you touch type?
No, I can't.
I know.
And I tried.
I know. Why did we not learn?
Yeah.
It would have saved us so much time. Yeah. And he used to write his scripts and touch type them. And he would sit upright like this. And he would go... And I was like, Dan Raviv, CBS News, London. I was like, how much time has that just saved him? And I was so
See, now
impressed.
We've got ChatGPT, so we don't need to touch time.
No. Don't say that. It's no good. Then Dan moved away and it was Adam Raphael. And Adam Raphael's son, Ollie Raphael, worked at LBC, which at the time was in Hammersmith on a place called Crown House on the Hammersmith Road, just down the road from Hammersmith Roundabout. And I was kind of obsessed with late night radio and this show Through the Night with Clive Bull, which I talk about in F1 Insider.
I get it from your book a little bit. You're a bit of a night owl.
Yeah. Well, teenagers growing up, they're either kind of morning owls or night owls, most all teenagers, and I don't know whether I, suffer from insomnia or other, but I love this idea of late night talk show radio where people were calling in. There was this little community of people, and we were all kind of connected via an airwave wherever you were across London. And he got me in. Ollie Raphael got me into a through the night program.
Yeah.
And so I was in there, met the producer, met Clive, and sat in the control room. And with all of these faders and all of these knobs and this studio, this darkened studio behind 3 layers of glass and this microphone that hung in the middle of it and this way that Clive was communicating to people through this microphone and anything he said in this microphone would go out through wires, through a transmitter and be beamed across, to other people. And that was a moment. That was the first moment that I knew I was hooked on radio. And that's what I wanted to do.
So what was it specifically about that? Was it the communication piece that you could speak to a mass audience in that moment? Or was it that,
really?
Because it's actually quite intimate radio, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually very intimate.
Yeah. It was the intimacy of the medium. It was the way that you didn't have to think about, appearance and visuals and stuff like that, which is why I like podcasts so much.
Except ones that are
on camera. I know, you didn't have to shave. I haven't shaved. I felt guilty. I should have shaved. I'm sorry. You could use your arms. You could do that, which I think was very good. And it was about listening to people and reacting to them, and only having to do that and only have one kind of bit of technical stuff to worry about.
See, that's very interesting, because I always found that quite unnerving. I like to be able to see the other person and then be able to take those visual cues.
No, I'd rather not see the other person.
What is it about your character that kind of that sort of means that you feel that way?
Which is why sometimes you'll see me if I'm doing an interview. Our camera people would always, sometimes they'd start on a 2.
Yeah.
It's like, shall I start on a 2? Or the director will say, start on a 2.
So that's a 2 shot for people that don't know.
Yeah. And presumably you never had any problem with this. And you were quite happy
well, actually, sometimes I do, because I'm so little compared to everybody else. Getting us in the same frame was sometimes an issue.
And so the moment I see, say you're Andrea Stella, team boss of McLaren or something, the moment I see Pete or Lee or Kieran or JD sort of pull out and start a 2, I'm like, no. What are you doing? No. What? Start a 1. Because I will sometimes look away because I find that helps my formation of the first question or
yes, but you know what that also really does reveal? That you understand that you're not the story. So you are also by virtue of just staging it in that way, you understand what's being asked of you, but actually you're putting the story first.
Well, I'm never the story, apart from when I'm promoting a book.
Apart from today.
Well, I'm not a very good story.
What's the second defining
So that was the first
piece?
one when I realized that I was just excited by radio.
Yeah.
And the second one was, and also, by the way, when I went to work then for Capital, I mean, that was just a bit of radio heaven. They had the main on-air studio was a kind of hexagonal room in the middle of the Euston Tower, the sort of first floor. And the microphone, a very, very good on-air microphone, was suspended by 4 steel wires with counterweights in the corner into the sort of central console. And it was dimly lit except for the presenter. And they drove their own desk. They operated their own mixing desk. In the radio, we call it the drive your own desk. And then I stepped in there to do my first early breakfast news at 5:30 in the morning, which was kind of my first taste of commercial radio. And I was like, wow. And then you had Chris Tarrant in there, Dr. Neil Fox, Pat Sharp, Mick Brown, then it was Kid Jensen, and then these big names. And that was what really sort of cemented my admiration and my love of radio. And as part of that, me and my friend Matt, who worked at the BBC, still does, managed to get into a test at Silverstone where Riccardo Patrese was driving a Williams. And we kind of sort of slightly blanked our way in with our press cards. So we managed to get ourselves into Silverstone.
Yeah. And
we did an interview with Riccardo Patrese that was never going to go anywhere. But, he
didn't know that.
He didn't know that. And then when he went out, we went and stood on the outside of the start-finish line. And he just came round, sort of pootled around, warm-up lap. And out of Woodcote, the last corner on the old start-finish straight where it used to be, he booted it. And the acceleration of that Formula One car, where it just went whoosh down to Copse. And that was a sort of moment for me, which was like, oh, okay, this Formula One lark is pretty good. I might be slightly obsessed with this. I've already watched it on the TV, but it was a kind of, when you see it in the flesh for the first time and you hear it, it's often quite an emotional moment. People talk about crying when they first see a race or the cars in the flesh, a sort of emotional reaction to it. So that was the second one. So the first one was the radio one, and the other one was the F1 one.
So the idea that you could combine this sort of absolute obsession for Formula One racing with, a deep-rooted, I think you have sort of a real technical appreciation because that's your brain, isn't it? That's how your brain works. You've got an engineering technical brain.
Yeah.
So you like to see it like the cockpit of a plane.
Yeah.
I can see very clearly that if you put those two things together, you're in the perfect job. I mean, what Anthony Davidson describes as a made-up job.
Yes.
Which I love, because that's brilliant.
Well,
it is a bit, isn't it?
You know Anthony very well. And he's a racing driver. And he doesn't understand TV. He doesn't understand broadcasting. He doesn't understand radio and stuff that we do. And he doesn't get, he thinks it's just, he refuses to believe that I'm actually in the pit lane. So I send him photos during qualifying in the race of cars making pit stops in front of me. I say, look, I'm 5 minutes, the last race in Monza, Fernando Alonso retired because he hit the Curva Grande, the curb at the chicane. And he had a suspension. And where I was, it was no further away than you are to me now. I could see the upright and it had this dink in it.
And how long have you and Ant been working together for now?
Anthony, I'm so in the pit lane.
How many years have you been trying to convince
14,
him of your made-up
I'm
job?
so in the pit lane, I can see this broken bit of suspension on Fernando Alonso's car. This is the essence of being a pit reporter. There's no point sitting in the commentary. He was like, I can tell more in the commentary box with the TV and the timings. It's like, well, maybe you will. As a commentator, that's not a pit reporter, which is to see the things that other people, that the commentators can't see. And then he used it when he stood in for me. He said, it's useless. I couldn't see a monitor. Good. You don't need to see a monitor. You're not there to see a monitor. You're there to see the stuff. Fernando Alonso comes in, Crofty or Martin will hand down to me, and I'll say, yeah, it's front right suspension failure. I can see it. I can see the thing's broken. And
the thing that's marvelous, I suppose, and what takes us to the Notebook, which is the thing you've become really very well known for recently, is this unedited piece of television, which I guess also chimes with your love of radio as a medium as well. Yeah. It's like the ability to tell stories, but not actually have someone chop them around to tell a particular narrative. You can just speak, which at times is going to get you in some hot water. And at other times is going to be very revealing. Well, should actually be very revealing for the viewer all along. So just talk about why the Notebook and why you feel such a passion for it, because it's something that has come to define you.
It's that look, it was never really a intention to be a kind of radio program on the air. But what I do like is that in the world of polished television, there can be a place where the audience doesn't know what's going to happen next, because neither do I.
Yeah.
And I think it's all a part of being straight with your audience and being honest about what you're doing, and getting them to understand it. And it is like that late night radio show that I was obsessed with, because it is a club of people watching. And sometimes I get people commenting on whatever and saying, this is the first time I've watched this Notebook. A, what are you doing? A, what the hell is this guy doing? B, like what? And then people will sort of come in on the comments and say, do you not know what this program is? And it's a society of people. We all understand what's going on. We all understand that it's a one-er. It's a one shot.
Yeah. One take.
A one take. And once we start, we never stop. It's not always live. It's 96% live. But sometimes if there's like if there's an F1 Academy race or something coming immediately after qualifying, then I'll record it and then it will go after that.
Yeah,
and
but you don't edit it.
No, we don't edit it unless someone does something terrible in it, or someone says something awful, or if there's a camera problem.
But how often does that actually happen?
There's been, I can count on the
yeah.
fingers of one hand how many times that's happened.
Because people want to believe that. People want to, and you want to sell that. The idea that this is absolutely authentic.
But if there's an edit in it, then I like the idea that people will be thinking, oh, I wonder what happened then. And it's a little race club of people who will get what's going on. And of course, you know, the intention of it in the first place is that when you're not able to watch the Grand Prix, it's quite nice and handy to have something that will tell you what happened in that day's Grand Prix.
Because let's face it, those ones that you can count on your hand, that have been particularly or may have been problematic. Was there one that ever didn't make it to air because of its content?
No, there wasn't. we have, and there's an example I do in the Ted's Notebook chapter where I cryptically say where somebody came in and said something potentially defamatory about another team and that we had to edit that out. That one went out live and then we had to go back and check. But this miscreant who said this, who leant into my microphone and said, why don't you say something about, I wasn't surprised that he said it because, and let's just say I sort of managed. And luckily, as you know, being a student and an expert of the televisual arts, there are different kinds of microphones. There are these microphones, which will pick up pretty much anything, and I'll go in there and it'll just be louder. It's nice and warm. And then there's the microphone that you used to use as a presenter where you essentially hold it there. The stick mic, not the clip mic. Obviously, the clip mic was quite omnidirectional. And then there's my mic, which is a Shure SM58 that has an extremely small zone of attenuation, which it's basically a rock star mic.
It's so a TED mic.
You have to lean it on your chin and drive your voice into that microphone, and then it will block out lots of other stuff. And I have a sneaky, did you know this? You probably did. I have a sneaky on-off switch on my mic. So if I need to do a cough,
there's potentially something,
or if I need to turn it off briefly and then turn it back on again, I can do that.
Don't go telling those team bosses that.
Well, it's never something that they need to worry about, apart from if I'm briefly discussing something else, and then I'll turn it off. And if I really need to, sometimes I'll unplug it from the wire. If I'm really discussing something with them. I'm aware that I didn't answer your previous question when I went off on something.
But that's because you're a stream of consciousness.
You're
literally taking yourself off on this, stream of consciousnness. You're back in your notebook world.
Yeah, it hadn't occurred to me that the notebook is basically a radio show. And that's why I tell the cameraman to go off and film something else while I'm reading my notes, because I feel bad knowing that I should be addressing the camera, because that's our connection between presenter and viewer.
Interesting.
And I feel that I'm not addressing the camera more and keeping eye contact. And I feel guilty that I'm having to read it. Now, obviously, presenting an entire commercial half-hour program by yourself and not talking is a fairly interesting skill set. And to do that, I am going to have to read some notes. We don't have auto cue. And to do that, and I'm going to do that. So I'd rather the cameraman go off and film something else while I read my notes so I don't break. I think it's more disruptive to the viewer if the cameraman's just showing me just reading some stuff and is like they're thinking, oh, well.
Sure. But one of the other facets of the notebook, which I think is really interesting, is this idea that then it would tell the story of many different people's day.
Yes.
Because so often, on air comms, you're limited by a time frame and a timestamp, and Simon and the crew are going to be concentrating on the lead stories.
Yeah.
There's also a real part, especially in this heavily driven content world in which we live in now, of telling other stories, unsung hero stories, stories further down the pit lane, all that sort of stuff. There's a real opportunity to tell that. But in the sort of, in an effort to get out what I really want to know is what right now, as we head into the back end of the season, is the biggest story in the Formula One paddock?
Well, that would have been covered by Simon. So I'm not interested in that. So I'm interested in.
That's why I asked it, right?
So I'll get onto it in a minute. So sometimes when you get on a Monday or a Tuesday and you get something appears on the socials and you think, oh, that's an amazing story. I didn't see that covered on Sky. It kills me if I didn't at least know about it, or secondly say it.
Yeah.
So Franco Colapinto feeling a bit faint after Monza, and needing to sit down and get the blood back into his head. Not unusual for a driver to feel when they're suddenly in a hot car and they stand up, blood goes down, they need to get their thing, and they come straight from the car through the FIA weighing scales, and then they come straight into the TV pen. And it's like, give them a chance. And of course, Franco goes to the Latin American TV first. And so he went there, the guy was asking a question, and Franco started to feel a bit faint. And then he sat down and got himself together, and then he carried on the interview. I referred to that so that's become a bit of a story on the Monday and Tuesday. People can see, because it takes time for social media to find the footage from South American TV. They see him kind of going away and he goes and sits down in the corner, blah, blah, blah. So I sort of did it because I didn't see it happening with my own eyes, but I did hear about it. I referred to it on the Notebook on Sunday. And I'm pleased about that because it means that my viewers will have known about it. Or I didn't say he nearly fainted because I don't think he nearly fainted, and I don't think he did. But I said he felt dodgy. He looked bad in the cool down pen. So I don't want anyone to go away from the Notebook without knowing those stories. Alex Albon and the team order with Williams. Gabriel Bortoleto, great finish again in the points. I don't know. Pierre Gasly from the pit lane, why it was. I just want all of the stories to be told. I'll never have time to tell them in all of the depth that maybe they deserve, but at least I don't want anyone to go away saying, well, that's first I've heard of it, And then no one can watch 4 hours of a TV show. And sometimes when I'm not doing a race, I miss qualifying and I think, it gets to 5 or 6 p.m., kids are having dinner or I've done dinner and they're eating whatever. It's like, I'd really like something like a digestible 26 minutes or half an hour that someone could tell me what happened in the day's F1. That's the point of the Notebook. I'm amazed more people don't do it. Probably to do with rights.
I'm taking you back. Of like dodging the question.
Yeah.
Which
back to your question, which was
what is right now as we head into the back end of the season, the biggest story in Formula One? You've had a few this season.
Probably now that the Red Bull situation has been dealt with, we know what Max Verstappen is doing next year. So the driver market isn't really the big story. It's probably the outcome of the World Championship, which it should be. And it's seeing how this interesting dynamic between Lando Norris, who is on pure speed, probably just a shade behind Max Verstappen, but not much. But, behind probably nobody else, probably about equal with Charles Leclerc on pure speed. Whether Oscar Piastri is in that bracket or is just Mr. Consistent and Mr. Calm and Mr. I'm gonna silently win this World Championship.
What do we not see? What do we not see as the viewer? And you see behind the scenes in this pit lane habitat.
Yeah.
Where the dynamics are in the relationship between the McLaren drivers and actually how that's evolving.
I think we see pretty much all of it, actually. I think we see Lando, who might be a little bit quicker, but isn't as consistent and has been having a bit of a shocker up and down the year. But Oscar, who's got his stuff totally together and is just like, after a dodgy first race where he finished 9th after spinning off in the rain, has been like, well, I'm not going to win a championship that way, am I? And had a word with himself and has been on the podium more or less ever since.
Yeah. And
that is the way you win a world championship. So, or is Oscar just as quick as Lando? It's like, I kind of not sure he is, but he is sometimes. He beats Lando. But Lando struggled with the car this year in a way that Oscar hasn't. Yeah, in the very first interview in Bahrain testing, remember that? Used to think, why are we doing this testing? But it's great. I love the way, and I speak about that as well in chapter 2, I think. You never know what's going to happen. What moments in an F1 season are going to turn out to be crucial. Yeah. You live through them, get back to the hotel, say, well, that was a bit of a boring day, didn't really do much.
And then
you think, that moment, that will turn out. First interview I do with Lando in Bahrain testing, comes around the corner, how is it? Car's a bit tricky. Not really doing, I've got to calm it down a bit, Whoa, it's a bit of a monster. And then Oscar's like, yeah, fine, yeah, it's great. All's good.
Isn't that telling?
And it was that. And Lando struggled with controlling this car.
And that's the story of the season.
And that's the story of the season.
Question about Max Verstappen, while we're talking about, this idea of one driver really getting the car and another not necessarily. Like, what is the deal with that? Is he just the most extraordinary driver and needs a particular setup that nobody else can seem to manage or deal with? I mean, what is the story behind that? It feels like if you take Max, you might sacrifice the championship as a constructor because he's all about that driver being able to drive that car. Can anyone else do it? alongside him?
Yes. I mean, Checo Perez came close. They won Constructors' Championships with Max and Sergio Perez. So he's been made to look pretty good, considering his replacements, Liam Lawson and latterly Yuki Tsunoda. So there should be a driver who can do that, but they haven't found him yet. And Max is just incredible in terms of knowing exactly what he wants and knowing what needs to change to get it. And Monza was a totally perfect case in point, whereas they were a bit worried about tyre wear. They thought, look, we'd have to run a bit of downforce for the tyres because otherwise you sort of slide around the corners and that wears tyres out and then we're just going to go backwards. And so we come up with this wing. Max, hope you like it. And it's Friday and he thought, it was okay, it was all right. Saturday morning, he's like, could you shave some bits off that wing? It's like, what? The wing that we already thought was like the lowest downforce wing possible? Yeah. Well, you want me to take some more downforce off it? Yeah. Can you like get a dentist drill out and like shave some bits off, take even more downforce on? Yeah, but Max, it might, muller us in the race because we're going to have these tyres that move around. And so, I'll be all right. I'll fix that. It's fine. And so it did. And so as the team boss, Lauren McKee said, Max pushed us in quite a unusual, setup direction, but he made it work. And the way he transformed the car, he was able to control the tyre graining, the tyre. So he had it all under control. Banks of engineers, people with PhDs at Red Bull, they were like, this is never going to work. Max Verstappen, it's like, just do it. Can you please do what I say, please? And I'll make it work. And was quicker than the McLarens, made them look silly. The amazing duo of the season. Has
there been an atmosphere change in that team since Christian Horner departed? I mean, has Max assumed even more control because he's so important to them? Or have you seen anything shift there, or is it all very much business as usual?
I haven't been able to discern an atmosphere change in regards to Max. To be honest, Max distanced himself from the Christian Horner situation pretty successfully and then was keen to stress that it was a company decision. And that's why Horner was swapped with Lauren McKee's. You'd have to start sort of looking at Helmut Marko's quotes about that. I did see a quote from, don't know who he gave it to, where he said the difference has been that McKee is an engineer and has worked better on the engineering side. I don't think he used the word better. I can't really tell. But McKee is an engineer, and I did think, as I said in the notebook last week, I thought it was significant that he sent the technical director Pierre Vacher up to the podium to be the constructors' representative, because Vacher has come on for a bit of some grief for not producing a car that's going to win Max the World Championship. But he seems to have got together with Verstappen and the engineers themselves out of that particular hole. And they will be contenders then for the rest of the season. Championship's gone, more or less, although you never know in F1. But yeah.
But we know Max is sticking around for a short while.
Yep.
And then what?
Then 2026, it's all going to be a very, very...
I mean, you've been through these regulation changes.
Yes.
Multiple times. What do you think?
But never one that has been so different for such a interesting reason, because it's all been driven by the power units. So to keep Formula One relevant as automotive side, to increase the electrification element of it, and to attract new manufacturers into the sport, which has been largely successful in various different measures according to which one you want to do. Ford are coming in as a battery helper, Audi are coming in, Honda are staying. They are tripling the hybrid element, the electrical energy element, but they're taking away one of the main ways to generate that electricity, which is the turbine that they run off the turbo. So good luck with that.
Wow.
If you're going to take it from 160 to 350 horsepower on the battery side, but you're only going to be able to generate that electricity by basically regen, do you have an EV?
Yes, we do.
Right. So when you put it into proper regen, and it's basically you're just taking your foot off the gas, and you brake like that.
Yeah.
So That's the only way that they're going to be able to charge the battery now, because they've taken away this thing called the MGUH, which is the motor generator unit heat that runs off the turbo. And that was unlimited. So you could have this huge turbo that they used to run on it, knowing that you didn't have this turbo lag because it was going to spin up. And even when it was putting loads of exhaust gas back into it was all governed by this turbine that regulated that. It could generate loads of electricity, but because the automotive world were never going to use this silly thing called an MGUH, didn't understand what it was and weren't going to use it, they dropped it. And it was like, okay, right, that's fine, we can drop it, it's no problem. But how are we going to generate triple the amount of battery power, please tell me? And that is how essentially you're going to run a massive, you remember the dynos you used to run on your bike wheel? To use to run your front light.
Yeah.
So they're going to effectively, through the MGUK, run that against the car on some straights to generate the electricity they need for boost.
But they got the best brains in the business on this, right? So there has to be an outcome which they've all agreed upon, which won't compromise performance.
No, because some people will get it better than others, but you will get. I don't know how wide our cameras are here. You know, say two cars are coming out onto a straight.
Yeah.
Depending on whether you're in a power unit manufacturer A or power unit manufacturer B, some ones will decide, okay, we're going to do it on this straight. This seems a good time to generate some electricity. We're going to put our dyno against the wheels, basically, and they're going to slow down, and the other one's going to speed up. And you're going to see people with what you think is an overtake, but it's not. It's the other guy's power unit harvesting amazing. Some electricity on the straight, and the other one isn't.
Okay, so for Max Verstappen, bide your time.
He doesn't know what's going to happen next year. No one knows. He thinks or thought, or people had an idea that because they aced the last regulation change, Mercedes will ace this one. But, you know, past performance is no, what's that annoying phrase that people say? Past performance is no guarantee of future success.
There's no guarantee.
No. So you just don't know. You know, Honda might get it right, which is in the Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Next year, they're moving from Mercedes to Aston Martin. Adrian Newey's there. Yeah. So he might. So it is wise for him to think, okay, let's just stay put with Red Bull. What he's afraid of is that Red Bull, who are starting their own engine department, company, will get it right. He's afraid that they're not going to get it right in the first year.
Yeah.
Because nobody, I think, has ever done that. You can't create a whole new engine company and ace a new regulation in your first year. They might.
Yeah.
But it would be pretty jolly impressive if they did that. That's what Max is worried about. It's like, okay, these new guys coming in, Red Bull powertrains, backed by Ford. Okay, that's great. Are they going to get it right in the first year?
So what are the options? What are the options for him? He either stays put with Red Bull or he transfers to Aston or Mercedes.
For 2027.
For 2027.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he could go to Ferrari if he wants, but, you know. But anyone would have him because he's just so brilliant.
Just tell us in a snapshot what it is about Max Verstappen which sets him apart from anybody else right now in the crowd.
I mean, I wonder. Obviously, it's you can't explain the natural talent and the feel and but he develops that, and it's the complete obliteration in anything else of his life apart from racing and his family, and that's it. He's not interested in pretty much anything else that I can think of. Not sure how much else Oscar has got on his family and racing.
Yeah.
And when he's not racing, he's doing his sim racing and he's thinking about how to make the racing better. And when he's not doing that, he's devoted to Kelly and Penelope and Lily, his daughter. So.
And what's crazy is everyone always says of an athlete, don't they? Everyone always says of a performance athlete that, when they have a family, it'll all change because, you'll endure those sleepless nights and you'll have other things to worry about, and perspective makes you perhaps have less of a killer instinct. It just hasn't happened. I think the first race back after having his daughter, he went out and won it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it doesn't happen to people necessarily like that.
No. And I always wonder about that because, what are you saying? That you don't, and I can guarantee, well, I would imagine if he's anything like the rest of us, when he's driving, he's only thinking about the race. He's not thinking, oh, did I, did I put the rubbish out? The bin men are coming tomorrow.
Trust me, living with a professional athlete, I know exactly where their heads are, and it's not anything other than in the race.
So you could have 12 children and it's not thinking of anything
so true.
like that.
The question about Lewis, what does he do next, do you think? I mean, we're going to talk about this because it's in your book as a really, really insightful and brilliant chapter all about Abu Dhabi 2021. And that, of course, links Max and Lewis forever in each other's storylines. Yeah. But just what do we think the future holds for Lewis now? Because he's had a really tricky start to that Ferrari time.
I think he wants to make it work.
Yeah, you can see that.
And that doesn't, that might mean winning races. That might be being on the podium. That might, obviously he's looking for that elusive 8th world championship. Is he going to get it in red? Who knows? Time will tell. It's unfortunate in a sense that, or maybe it's fortunate that the rules are changing so completely next year. Maybe Ferrari will get it right. We don't know. But I imagine he will just think so he's got a 2-year deal the next year, and maybe he's got an option for a 3, I'm not quite sure, but he's been very open about how he's got a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
And he wants to set Ferrari up to be, top of Formula One technology and operationally and everything. And he's been quite open about seeing some areas where they're not at the top, and he wants to change those. I wonder whether Lewis's best achievement or greatest achievement with Ferrari will be setting a team up to win sometime after he's retired. And that might be that. But if he can leave Ferrari in a very much more winning most situation than when he than when he arrived, then he would see that as a great achievement. And if that means winning a few races along the line, then fine. What he doesn't want to do is have the end of his career dominated by something that he wouldn't want to end it on. That's why he didn't want to end. He basically quit after Abu Dhabi 21, didn't he? He's quite open about that. He went home. I thought, I'm done with this. I don't want to be part of it. I'm not going to go back. If that's the weather that happened, I can't come back from this. But he didn't want the end of his career to be dictated by what happened in Abu Dhabi. And do you remember I know I don't pay massive attention to the social media things, but sometimes things happen that you come back to relate on, like what happened at the beginning of seasons. There was one a couple of years ago when he said, it's my masterpiece, and I'll say when it's finished, and I'll decide when it's finished. I'll decide when it's completed. His career is his masterpiece, and I think that's it with Lewis. He'll decide. People were concerned after Hungary before the summer break this year, when he was saying, Charles Leclerc was on pole in the same car. Hungary, a circuit that Lewis has always excelled on and has prided himself on being very good, and I think he was not in the top 10. And he was saying, I'm useless. They should change the driver, stuff like this. Very much heart on the sleeve. And then people were worried, is he going to quit over the summer break? But again, I don't think he wouldn't want that to be the last word on his career.
Agreed.
Or his masterpiece. So, I'm glad he didn't quit because he's on the front cover.
So he is. The other thing that's pretty remarkable about Lewis, when you look back at
book out of date. That's a terrible thing about doing that. Not that you asked.
It will always.
But writing a book about Formula One.
Yeah.
And then it's gone. Managed to catch Horner's sacking in there. It was just going to print.
So fast.
It was going to print.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, wait. Austria says, Christian Horner's been removed.
You can do edition updates. You'll do it. You just need to get better at that touch typing.
Sorry, go back to your,
With Lewis, though.
Yeah.
I do feel like, and it wasn't a racing moment. It was actually one of the worst moments that could have happened in 2021 with Abu Dhabi, and losing that opportunity to bag that 8th championship title was actually how he handled himself in the darkest of moments. And I remember talking to Anthony, his father, about how actually when they had the moment between each other where they could just have a quiet father and son moment. And he said to him, just remember, you're a role model. So what you say now really does count for something. And the way that Lewis handled himself in a situation which was so inexplicably difficult, I suspect, as a competitor to take, was really admirable, was hugely admirable. And I think that character really, really came through then. But you were there right in the heat of the battle of all of that. And you mention it. It's actually, I don't know why you do. Well, I do know why you do this, but you leave it to practically the last chapter in the book, isn't it?
No, there are
it's
three.
A couple after.
Last but 3. There are 3.
There we go.
There are 2 more after it.
So it is quite interesting what you say, because you say if you've read up to this point and been wondering when I was going to get to perhaps the most significant and important moment of my time in F1, and certainly the biggest story I've covered, here it is, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix of 2021. Just explain, I mean, everyone who's listening to this knows the world of Formula One, I'm sure, very, very well, but just explain what was so exceptional about it and why everyone is absolutely terrified to talk about it.
I was going to put in there, and if you've scrolled through and come to this chapter first, then naughty you. But I took that out.
But you do talk about the fact that everybody finds it difficult to sort of talk about this race because you either sit on one side of the fence or the other. Well,
Toto Wolff said there are 3 things we don't talk about at the dinner table. Politics, religion, and Abu Dhabi 2021. So to answer your first observation, or to comment on your first observation about Lewis, history has shown how well he dealt with that, because he didn't really know what had just happened.
No.
Apart from saying on the radio, this is being manipulated, man, and his team radio. But he didn't understand the back and forths with the lobbying that the race director got from not only the Red Bull pit wall, but also the Mercedes pit wall. But his reaction has stood the test of time in being so, as you say, apposite, brilliant, appropriate, honourable, correct and inspirational for people when something goes against you, to what we later found out. But why is it difficult? Well, because as I say in the introduction, people are to call it controversial, but when you look at the dictionary definition of controversial, it doesn't seem to count to Abu Dhabi. Controversial, I believe the dictionary definition, without having it in front of me, is something where the facts are disputed and there's some dispute as to what actually happened. And as I say in the chapter, there's no actual dispute. People aren't really disputing what's happened. There's a certain emotional reactions on either side, a defensive position if you're Red Bull Racing and the race director, and saying, well, what we did was absolutely fine. That's, no problem. Which is what effectively the FIA later concluded, with the exception of saying there was a human error in terms of the laps, the cars that were not included to be unlapped. I was going to say aggressive, but it's not really that, on the point of Mercedes or Lewis Hamilton or people who feel that it was unfair. And I don't think you'll find many people, probably in the first group, they'd say it was not unfair. Who would say that this, Lewis was robbed and this is unfair and he was stolen from him and all of that. So there are emotional responses either way, but I don't think the facts are disputed. And that's essentially what I've done in the chapter, which is just I've gone through all the facts and said this is what happened. And I don't think we should be afraid. I end the chapter by saying that, if the point of history is to understand and learn for later reflection, or to make sure that we understand for the future, that's the point of the study of history, then you've got to write a chapter about it. There's nothing in there really that we all the transcripts between the team bosses and Michael Massey, they were all broadcast at the time. The FIA had their say, the stewards had their say. We all know what happened. And that's it.
And you reported it as you saw it.
Yes, was that your question? Sorry.
Yeah, and then what happened?
Well, I'm quite happy. I mean, the FIA did a investigation into it and brought out a report which came out the March following in 2022. And we reported that at the time. I remember standing with Simon Lazenby, Martin Brundle and Damon Hill. And I had the sheet, the report of the FIA, and we went through it. And there wasn't really anything that we didn't already know. Have a look at it. It's on your favorite. Well, it's on YouTube. Our bit from that. We knew that Massey had taken the unusual and decision not to enforce the second part of Rule 48.12, which was that the race will restart the lap after all the lapped cars overtake the leader. But we also knew what he later relied on, which was that he'd relied on 15.3, which was that the race director has overriding authority in the case of the safety car. So
why was Massey let go?
That's the big
If
question.
there wasn't a controversy.
I mean, people will have their own interpretation. It's not that there was a controversy. Why was Massey let go? And I say this, if in the FIA's summation, even after their report that took them 3 months to do it, they found that he acted in good faith and didn't actually break any rules or make any mistakes. I mean, not unusual. His two successors as race director were also let go. I say it's not fair. Eduardo Freitas was not let go. He left. But Niels Wittich, who took over from him, was let go by the FIA for some other thing that I don't know about. But it's, listen, I mean, it's a good, if I say so myself, it's a factual chapter. There's nothing that anybody, what I hope people don't do is read the Abu Dhabi chapter, get enfrothed about the whole thing once again, and say that I'm some kind of apologist for one side or the other, because there's just no point. If you're if you feel it was that there was some intent to make sure that Lewis Hamilton was not an 8-time world champion for any reason that you're imagining, then you can take that belief with you into your days, and you can carry on with that, and you can believe what you want. There's no evidence to support that. There's no evidence that Michael Massey had a preference either way, who was world champion. He was just, with a load of pressuring from the teams,
just made that decision.
And with a load of intentions that he was aware of, that we don't really want safety championship races to finish under safety cars. We'd rather there was not a red flag, which would lead to one more chaotic lap racing, because we had one earlier in the season in Baku and it was a bit of chaos. Let them race. There are all these sort of three things that he was doing and sort of encumbered by, I think, under pressure, that led him to make the decisions that he did on the day.
I want to talk to you about Drive to Survive. I'm calling it the Americanization of Formula One.
Yes.
I mean, it's gone absolute gangbusters, hasn't it? And it's exploded in the US, I think, largely in part to Drive to Survive and then the Formula One movie and everything that's happened since. Yep. How have you seen, since the time we were working together in Formula One, which must be 2012?
Yep.
It's about 2012. Even in the last 10, 12 years, how have you seen the evolution of the sport, and actually how much has it been turbocharged by the likes of Drive to Survive? Because there is a real question over actually, what do people love? Do they love the drama of that storyline, or do they like the technical insight? Or is it both? I mean, what is it offering the fan that everyone just cannot get enough of?
It is both, because if I can, speak as a fan, I will like the technical stuff that I find out, spotting that Max Verstappen has shaved bits off his rear wing. It's like, how's he going to keep his tires alive on that? But I'll also like the bit where he's doing whatever away from the track stuff he's doing with Drive to Survive, although that's a bad choice, because I don't think he lets them into his life away from the track in the way that
goes back to our earlier conversation.
The 19 other drivers do. But I think there's plenty of juice for everyone in this particular orange, or lemon, or whatever, grapefruit. In the Formula One watermelon, there is plenty of juice for everyone. There's juice for Drive to Survive. There's lots of stuff for all the individual social media stuff. There's lots for us on TV. There's lots of stuff for podcasts and everything. So it's completely fine to have it. As TV people, I'm interested in how they do it. If we were going to do a behind the scenes documentary about Formula One or a team, we would kind of plan it. We'd know that we couldn't shoot everything, and we'd know what were the bits that we needed to be and the characters we need to do.
Yes, and that is interesting. Points. Where are the storyline decisions get taken? Right.
And of course, Drive to Survive, and I hope people realize this. Increasingly, I'm sure they do, and that's why I do a chapter about Drive to Survive in F1 Insider, is that just have a half a thought about that. All right, if you're not TV professionals like we are, then have a half a thought about how this is shot, what they're shooting, whether what they're shooting, how is it that they're suddenly at this crucial moment that nobody could have seen coming? How is it that they're behind the scenes at this driver being signed, or team boss being sacked, or this crucial, this guy, just have a little think about that. And that's all I ask. And because at the beginning of a season, through testing, there's a reason why in testing in the first Melbourne or Bahrain or whatever the first few races are, Drive to Survive have 5 crews because they have to shoot everything.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what's going to be.
To work out where the story is going to be.
Where the story arc is going to be.
Yeah.
They don't know what the story is going to be. And, last year they had a head start because they knew Lewis was coming to Ferrari because that was done quite early. They knew Carlos Sainz would be going somewhere else. So that was kind of the arc. But you look at Carlos Sainz's season this year has not been great. And would they have decided early on to follow that throughout? I don't know. Is that going to make an episode? Probably not. Is Lando going to make an episode? Is Christian Horner in his situation this year going to make an episode?
That is quite interesting because they have leaned into the team boss piece quite heavily, as opposed to just driver telling stories, and made these sort of, I'm not saying that they've made sort of pantomime villains or whatever, but they've definitely got a character story arc going for each and every one of those team bosses, right? So what does Drive to Survive lose when someone like Christian Horner steps away from Formula One and Toto's adversary is then different again? And they made so much of that. It was a wonderful story.
I mean, I don't know. For all we know, they're on the sofa watching Monza with Christian Horner. We don't know, do we? I mean, what does a team boss do after he's removed as being a team boss? Might be quite an interesting story for Drive to Survive.
Would be a good notebook.
And heaven knows, they've been shot enough in Christian's house with Jerry and the horses, so that they might have still the security code. So do
you know anything? I mean, you're all in it.
I know nothing.
You're all in the paddock though.
Yes.
Doing your various jobs. Like everyone's got their various own jobs to do. It's all very busy and chaotic, but also very organized at the same time. So everyone's got their own thing that they're doing. But there are moments where you're in the same hotels or you're at the same restaurants or whatever else, or you get together with various people from various different groups in that paddock, and you share ideas and conversations. Do you ever sort of sit down and learn from them what their priorities are, what their storylines are, or are you just letting them all get on and do their thing? Do the worlds coincide? Do they cross over?
Drive to Survive
with Drive to Survive?
Well, pretty well, because suddenly you're about to do an interview with somebody, and Adam King with the boom mic comes in. Kingy, you remember, used to work for us. Yeah. And there's a camera crew, another camera, a much nicer camera than we have, expensive camera, appears on your shoulder and says, it's like, oh, right, okay. I see. And or you're having a private conversation with somebody and you see, oh, there appears to be you're wearing a personal mic, are you? And it's like, you appear to be wearing a transmitter. Is this, are you mic'd up? And they're like, so yeah, I am mic'd up. It's like, God's sake. So what the interesting thing from our point of view about Drive to Survive is that we don't get any choice about being in it or not. So if you're in the paddock, it is assumed that you have given, I think it's actually in our pass conditions, that you have given
a waiver.
You've signed your release form basically for being in Drive to Survive. Now, is that the same for all the teams and the drivers and the team bosses? In the chapter, I say what I understand. Well, what is the case is that Netflix, Box to Box, the production company, and Formula One retain editorial control of Drive to Survive. But I also say, which is true, is that teams and drivers and bosses can make representations to those 3 people if they want something included or not, or rather, if they don't want something included.
But they don't have editorial control. No.
Formula One, Netflix,
and if you
and Box
gave that away, it would be
editorial control.
Yeah.
But think about it when you're watching. When has this been shot? When did the crew turn up for this?
We don't want to think about it when we're watching. Well, we just want to kick back on the sofa and watch the drama unfold, whatever the storyline is.
It's true. But crews,
I know.
Camera crews can't go and, they have to be booked like any other service, right? You can't just sort of sit in a room and say, right, are we going to sign the contract today?
It's not planned, Ted. It's not pre-thought through.
Maybe.
It's just lucky. It's all luck.
But the other question that you didn't ask is, how have people's characters been shaped by the fame that has come to them from Drive to Survive?
Interesting, yes.
And that is a thesis subject for a doctorate
on
another
podcast
something
entirely.
that I'm not going to do.
But I suppose what it does do, if it shines a light, a bit like your notebook, it shines a light on teams and crews that aren't perhaps always front of the grid or other storylines. It brings to the fore.
Yeah.
Does it make monsters out of people?
I don't know. I mean, has it had an effect on who's much more famous than they were before?
Gunther Steiner. He now has bought a MotoGP team. MotoGP is selling out the London Palladium. Yeah. His books are doing very well. If I can sell half as many books as he did, I'll be doing well. So, that had a big effect on him. Did Drive to Survive and the fame that came with it have an effect on Christian Horner? Don't know. That will be part of a, media studies thesis into the future. With Toto Wolff
and with drivers, Zach Brown.
Yeah. With drivers, in the end, it is what's happening on the track, isn't it? Team
drivers
principals, perhaps it's a little
the drivers
different.
were famous enough. They didn't need Drive to Survive.
No.
Possibly. But it's good.
But can you feel the reaction when you touch down in the US for those Grand Prix there? Can you feel the change? Can you feel the interest has surged?
Not really, because of all the US Grand Prix that I ever did, even going back towards before Drive to Survive, there was always a very healthy crowd at the racetrack.
Yeah.
But
F1 the movie wouldn't have been made without it, would it?
No, probably not. Would F1 the movie have been made without Drive to Survive? Probably not, although you never know. But yeah. It was Grand Prix were always pretty well attended. Even after the chaos of Indianapolis 2005, the 6-car race, which is another chapter where I talk about how Formula One kind of dealt its popularity in the US, a pretty heavy blow. But I'm not aware of it. Where I am more aware of it is actually people who haven't bought a ticket from the ages of 15 to 23, who maybe can't afford a 400 quid ticket or whatever, who are outside the gates morning, noon and night, waiting for a driver or waiting for anyone they've seen on Drive to Survive because they want to see their heroes in the flesh. Yeah. That's what I'm more aware of, actually. That's where you see it, which is really interesting. 24
races now over the course of a calendar season.
Why are you furrowing your brow in that way?
Well, you're lucky I can. It just shows that I haven't chosen that other route, which means a non-furrowed brow.
It's all right.
But genuinely, 24 races over the course of a calendar season. I mean, what does that feel like? From, you say we talked about this earlier, like it's a slick and well-oiled machine now, in terms of how you turn up, deliver and leave. But
it's okay.
That takes its toll. It's exhausting, isn't it?
It's fine. I'll do 26 if you want me to. I mean, I don't do 24. We have a bit of a rotation system at Sky F1 people are aware of. We all miss a few. I missed Hungary and Zandvoort because we all miss a few just to keep us fresh, to answer your question.
Which ones would you absolutely steadfastly refuse to miss?
I wouldn't refuse. I could, if in our rota and rotational, if Burley Collins,
that's been very
who tends
diplomatic.
to, no,
which is your favourite?
Well, my favourite is Brazil.
There we go.
Because I like South America anyway. I like the passion. I was always a Senna fan, which hopefully comes across in here a bit. I like the passion of the crowd. I like the fact that Sao Paulo is an interesting, busy, slightly chaotic city. I like going to Senna's grave every year to pay my respects. Don't manage it every year, but I try to. Morumbi Cemetery, amazing place, surrounded by high rises, but it's this sort of grassy hills, and in the middle it's got this thing with Senna's plaque, and there's nada pode me separar do amor de Deus, which is nothing can separate me from the love of God in Portuguese. I even know it off by heart. And I just love going to Brazil, and great steakhouses and the caipirinhas, the Brazilian Portuguese cocktails that I also refer to in the book, which are delicious and deadly at the same time.
Why is it taking you so long to write it?
Because there's no point writing a book after 12 years. You haven't got anything to say.
Oh, what?
You've got to do 30 years in the business before you have something to say.
So do you feel like you've had to do that time to earn the right?
I'm not saying anything against people who've written books after 12 years in the business.
It's funny though because I talked to Ben about this the other day, and he really regrets the fact that he wrote a book quite early on.
Really?
Yeah, because he said, actually, what was I thinking? Like, there's more to say.
Because he's won 58,000 Olympic medals and he's the world's best sailor. That's why he should write a book.
Yeah, but when you're only like 34 and that's,
I hadn't
there's
achieved,
more to say.
At least maybe I've got something to say after 30 years. Sir Ben Ainslie, best sailor in the world, could write a book about how to sail a laser.
I'm sure he's already done that. He's probably done that, hasn't he? I haven't looked it up.
Having spent the summer in Suffolk and seen people
struggling.
No, on small sailing boats. It did enter my head. I was like, imagine when you're, Ben Ainslie and you know how to sail. That must be such an amazing skill.
I'm amazed that you don't know how to sail. No, but I'm amazed about that because actually your brain would absolutely love it. It would find it fascinating because Ben adores and appreciates the cockpit of an aeroplane like you do. The engineering mind and the technical mind and working out the wind and everything else. I mean, that's perfect.
I would love it. And if you, particularly horrifying, but if you had a look at my YouTube algorithm or even my Instagram algorithm, there are a lot of sailing stuff in there because these people who do Trans-Pacific or Transatlantic or into Caribbean or trade winds. And I sort of look at all of these things and it's like, why can't any of these boats just not go wrong? What is it about the sea, that takes no prism, Mother Nature? And it's like, why can't there be sort of a sailing boat that doesn't lose a hook that goes in there, or this thing has come off and the nuts and bolts have come undone just because of use? But I love the idea, not that I ever get a chance to, because I just don't, to be on a yacht or a sailing boat that just turns the propeller up. It's like, why do they have to have propellers? I can understand they sometimes need to, but using the power of the wind and the power of nature to make energy and speed. And something Sterling Moss always said is that movement is efficiency. And I like that you can do that and incredible things that Ben does.
Adrian Newey loves yachting.
Yes.
Again, another sort of engineering super mastermind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
If you ever have
more races off,
time,
i.e. you do less than 24 in a calendar season. Yeah. I run about like 15 or something. Come sailing with us.
I mean, that would be incredible. But to answer the question.
I mean Ben.
I mean, I couldn't really, because that would be like asking, Ayrton Senna to give me a driving lesson, I can't ask the world's best sailor to.
Yeah, you can. Of course you can. He's just over there in that office. You can ask him after this.
But to answer the quiz, so I do 20 races, 19, 20. One off keeps you fresh now and again, and the rest, if you are efficient with the way you travel, to quote Sterling Moss again, then it's fine, and we're lucky. Listen, we're lucky to do the job we do and to travel.
How do you be efficient with the way you travel?
Because it starts.
How do you do? Genuinely, if you're somebody that does a lot of traveling, how do you do it?
Hand luggage.
Hand luggage only.
It drives me crazy. My colleagues. Oh dear, I've realised that you used to go around with 2 huge suitcases.
No, I didn't.
A big suitcase. You were never just hand luggage.
No, absolutely not. No.
Maybe it's different.
Yeah, but for girls, we've got so much clobber that we have to take alongside us.
I know.
Ted, as ever, lovely to see you. Thank you for coming on.